So now we're going to have a look at FilterFreak 1 and FilterFreak 2. Now we've got a new track here to work on. It's kind of a disco house style track. Give you a quick blast. So I'm going to give you some ideas of how you could use FilterFreak 1 and FilterFreak 2 to enhance this track. So the first thing, dead simple, this is something I do a lot on my own tracks, is just having a high pass filter on the master channel, bit of resonance, and then we use the mix control to occasionally take out the low frequencies and then bring them back in again. Tried and tested, classic technique. So I'll give you a little blast. So that's obviously as I said, tried and tested DJ technique, works fantastically well for this kind of music, house music in general, just taking out those low frequencies and bringing them back in. Because often when you're working with kind of repetitive music, club music, it's just changing things simply that have been repeating in the same way that can be really powerful on the dance floor. So that's a very simple way we can use FilterFreak. So what else could we try doing with FilterFreak? Well, at the moment I have my drums being routed through bus 1. Let's place FilterFreak 1 on there. Now, we could actually take out the filtering aspect of FilterFreak entirely and simply use the analog styles and input and output section here to add some grit to our drums. So if I click on tweak, I can choose some different analog styles here. So let's try fat to start with. I'll drive the input a little bit, just take down the output to compensate. So we can add all that extra kind of distortion and saturation. So in this case, the drums. Now something we could also try doing is kind of focus this in a little bit of an area. So let's say we chose the high pass mode, bring down the frequency and bring down the mix control and dial in just a little bit. That's what we're dialing in. Let me solo it. So that's what we're adding in. So we're adding a bit of analog crunch to the high frequencies. That's pretty nice. Okay, let's try something different. Let's go back to our main stereo track. And now let's try bring up the mix control. Let's put this onto a bandpass setting. And let's try using the ADSR mode here to create some cool kind of rhythmic interest. I'll bring up the modulation, which is now bringing this section to play here. Now what this means is the ADSR envelope is being triggered whenever the sound exceeds this threshold here. So you can hear how just messing with the frequency and the modulation amount, which is the amount we're affecting the cutoff frequency by this modulation section here, can create amazing rhythmic interest, especially for this kind of music, this kind of disco-y house kind of music. I mean, filters and disco house just go hand in hand, really. So messing around with this kind of modulation on the filter cutoff and then automating those parameters is really, really powerful. And of course, there's always, just bring in a new FilterFreak, just the pure, nice and easy low pass filter sweep. Again, tried and tested technique for dance music, especially. That kind of filter sweep is just always does the job, really. Okay, so let's have a look at some other ideas for FilterFreak. Okay, so now that we've got our tech house track open, let's see if we can add some rhythmic interest to that kind of vocal loop here. That's what it sounds like. Just get the volume up a little bit. Now we're going to use FilterFreak 2, and this allows us to have a dual filter. So we've got two different filters. And what we're going to do is we're going to add in a rhythm here. So I'm going to go to the tweak menu. I'm actually just going to go in and let's just choose a preset. So I'm going to choose, let's say, this mixed one here. So I've just chosen that at random, really. And this is going to give us a preset modulation rhythm, similar to when we looked at the rhythm editors and the other plugins in previous videos. And we can choose the amount we want to modulate. Let's kind of move the frequency cutoff around a little bit. Let's increase the resonance. Let's actually just solo this to really hear what's going on. I'll put it on bandpass mode for both of them. Okay, let's try some different modes here for the analog style. So what we've got here is this rhythm with sine waves with this rhythm preset of mixed, modulating because we've got this up below the minimum here, and it's modulating the frequency of both filters 1 and 2. I've increased the gain so it's a bit more pronounced, and also the resonance so we have a little bit more of a spike to those frequency cutoffs. We've definitely got some extra rhythmic interest. Let's try it without. And let's try it in context of the track. Pretty cool. Quite a nice extra rhythm added to the track. Actually has a nice kind of call and response with the chord sound. And of course, we can go through and edit this rhythm preset as we see fit. And that might be something you just use at one part of the track just to add a little bit of interest to a breakdown or whatever it might be. Okay, so let's have a look at some ideas for the rock track. Okay, so for the rock track, we're going to go for something slightly more random. We're going to try and enhance the snare using FilterFreak 2. Now, the advantage of using FilterFreak 2 is that we have this dual filter approach. I'm going to do it in parallel, so we're going through both the filters simultaneously. I'm going to set the second filter to a high pass and the first to a band pass. Now, with the band pass filter, I'm going to try and pick out the kind of fundamental of the snare. Let's have a listen while we do it. I'm going to change the pole to make it more of a narrow bell. So you can hear when I increase the gain, we're really picking out that fundamental. Let me bring the modulation down so it's not confusing things. Now we've got a high pass for the second filter, which is going to allow us to bring out the high frequencies. Let's go to the tweak menu and let's bring in some saturation. I'm just going to kind of be quite heavy-handed with this. Okay, so if we mix this in parallel, we're really kind of smashing this snare drum, but we're changing the tone of it as well. And there is an area here on the snare drum which can often be a kind of cluttered, kind of confused area of frequencies, if that makes sense. So we often have the fundamental kind of around the 200 hertz area. And then this kind of 500, 400 area on the snare can be a little bit unnecessary. You don't necessarily need to have it in the track. And then the higher areas is where we get the transient of the snare and, yeah, that snap of the snare. So let's try it in context and see if it's adding anything. Now it's quite a lot louder. Let me just bring down the input gain. But it's really bringing out that snare. It's doing a good job of kind of selecting the different frequency areas of interest in the snare and representing them as well as possible. Now, as I said, we could add some modulation to this. I would do it in envelope mode, which means that when we're crossing the threshold, we're going to be introducing this attack and release setting. So you can hear it's making it have that kind of strange, kind of resi sound to it. Let's actually bring the resonance up a little bit at this area. Now, it's entirely inappropriate for this track, really, to have this kind of weird resonance snare modulating. But, you know, on a different style of music, could be just the thing that lifts the track to the next level. But let's take the modulation down and see what it's like now I've brought in this resonance on the high passed second filter. Pretty cool way of kind of EQing snare without having to use EQ and being able to bring in a little bit of analog fatness at the same time. Okay, so now we've had a look at FilterFreak 1 and 2 and tried some different things out with that plugin. Next up, we're going to have a look at Phase Mistress. Thanks for watching.